I think we have some participants already with us. So good afternoon, good evening. My name is Atul Khosla. We should be starting in another 1 minute sharp. 2 minutes actually. So Mr. Vivek Atray will be joining us in a second. And good afternoon once again to all the participants. Vivek, good afternoon. How's it today in Chandigarh? We should be starting in another minute, but tell us more about what's happening.
Yes, Atul, good afternoon. How are you? It's fine here, Atul. It's a clear day. It's been raining off and on, but it's overall okay.
We love the painting behind you. It's beautiful. Is that a painting or is that a picture?
It's a painting of a girl. I think she's sewing some, she's making some handicraft. It's by a Chandigarh artist, and there's a very unique story behind it. Maybe I'll tell you the story a little later in this session.
Okay, so I think it's time to start. It's.
I believe we have the principal, Neera ma'am.
Hey, hello, ma'am. How
right.
are you?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hello, ma'am. I'm really fine. Nice to meet you people. I have heard a lot about Mr. Atul and Mr. Vivek concerning this NEP and other conductions of the seminars. So I'm really grateful to have you people for my school. You really spared a lot of time for my teachers for this purpose. So
Thank you, Neera ma'am.
I hope my teachers are there.
Yes, I think we have around 30 plus others on YouTube, so we should start. And good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Neera ma'am. Good afternoon, Vivek. I'm still confused whether 4 o'clock is good afternoon or good evening, so I'll also add good evening to all of you. Vivek, you can then tell us whether 4 o'clock is afternoon or evening. You got your English right over here. My name is Atul Khosla. I'm the founder and Pro-Vice Chancellor of Shulini University, Kasale Hills. I welcome you, all of you, to this very exciting webinar. We're going to talk about the new education policy. But more importantly, I think we'll talk about how the new policy will impact you and impact your students and impact your children, because I think all of you will have children who probably are going to school. So a quick introduction to Vivek. Vivek Atray, who's going to be the speaker of the day. He is an ex-IS officer. He's been the Director Education for Haryana, so he is an educationist. Also a professor at Shulini University now, a TEDx speaker, a motivational speaker, an author of 3 books, highly quoted across the world, including the Wall Street Journal. And as I say, Vivek is a very dear friend, and also he's given us and handed us the IT Park of Chandigarh which is his brainchild. So Vivek, welcome to this discussion and welcome to Ideas That Matter.
Thank you.
Ideas That Matter is a series of webinars that Vivek and I started around 4 months ago. Our whole idea was to connect with each other and hopefully inspire all of you, and hopefully in the process inspire our students. We're very delighted that this is the 101st webinar of Ideas That Matter. We've touched more than 100,000 teachers so far across India, 200 plus schools. And what could be more exciting than speaking to you lovely teachers today? So I am Atul Khosla. Like I said, I'm a BTech from IIT Kanpur. I now teach at Shulini. I'm an MBA, and I got into education around 8 years ago, and I full-time am the Pro-Vice Chancellor at Shulini and also the founder. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Vivek. The format will be Vivek and I will take around half an hour taking you through the nuances of the new education policy. We will then love to get into a discussion. So please keep posting your questions, your comments, and we'll pick up each one of them. We promise that. And at that point of time, after half an hour, I'll request Neera ma'am to also join us into the discussion. So Vivek, Atray, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Atul Khosla. And once again, it's a pleasure to be a part of Ideas That Matter. Today, we are speaking to Maharana Pratap School, Senior Secondary School, I believe, in Pathankot. And it is wonderful to be speaking to the teachers and the principal of such a good school. And it is very important that we talk about the new education policy and some ideas that Atul and I have. We will discuss with you. And as mentioned, we have been doing this series with many schools, over 100 webinars now done. And this is amazing that we have been able to reach out to so many teachers and schools. So just to come to the point of education, first of all, what is the point of education? The real product of the educational system is the child, the student. And who are the stakeholders? The teachers, the parents, the students, as well as the staff and the faculty and everybody who's concerned with the education system. Are we doing our best? Yes, I think many teachers and many institutions are doing their best to bring out the best in the children. However, do we have the best system in the world? No, I don't think we have the best system in the world. And it has been often, it has been a problem that we have been focusing too much on rote learning, on memorizing things, on learning without analyzing and thinking, on too little of creativity and too much of facts. So we had this even when we were in school, and it still continues to quite an extent. We also focus a lot on marks, and marks give rise to admissions in good colleges. So therefore, we focus too much on marks and on memorizing facts and details. How much of this do we use in our life later? Whatever we studied in school and then college, except if you are a teacher or a principal or into the education system, you may not use much of the knowledge that you have gained in the information and the information that you have garnered in the educational stint in your actual career. So what is the key? What is the solution? The solution is to be innovative, to make sure that education doesn't only give knowledge and information, but creates human beings who are outstanding, who are good enough to take on the future, and who are able to lead this country into the better future. Now, if we look at a book by Yuval Noah Harari, a great author nowadays, Oxford professor, he talks about the fact that the future of mankind is quite bright, he says. He's got a book called Homo Deus, and the first one is called Sapiens. Homo Deus is a book which says that we will have a very bright future in the next 100 years or 200 years or even 500 years. And he says that generations to come will focus more on the arts and creativity and on music, etc. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy, which is a famous pyramid that Maslow gave in social studies, some students may have studied it and teachers may have taught it. It is Maslow's hierarchy basically says that basics like water, power, roads, etc., they are at the bottom of the hierarchy of human needs and actually human desires and human wants. So if we go above that, then we get into the higher realms of human living. If a person doesn't have even money to eat 2 square meals a day, then that means he has to focus on the bottom of that pyramid. But if somebody is comfortable financially, or at least he's enough placed in life to be okay, that person can focus on the higher levels. So giving this context, I'd like to say that the new education policy actually focuses, I think, a little more on creativity, a little more on flexibility, a little more on all-round development of the children instead of only bookish learning. And all-round development means that we are also talking about social emotional learning at a school level. We are talking about creating all-rounders instead of creating only unidimensional citizens of the country. And we are talking about flexibility, as I said. So if you look at the features of the new education policy, Atul has a PPT on that he will show you. But just to run through them, you will notice that the pressure on the students will reduce as a result of the new education policy. Why? Because in this system currently they have to choose a subject. In ninth class also they have to start thinking. In 11th class they have to start thinking of college. In 12th class, of course, and they are under pressure to choose their career. Sometimes these children are not ready to finalize a path which will be there for the rest of their lives. And it is better to let them be flexible. We will also have formal schooling from the age of 3 as per the new policy. So instead of 10 plus 2, there is that 5 plus 3 plus 5 plus 3, something like that, which will basically mean that we are starting at the age of 3 with primary education, and then the child will go on. Because anyway, children are going to play school, etc., at the age of 2.5. So it is better to formalize that part of education and make it better part of the system. And once these children pass out of school, the flexibility they will have is that they can do something like dual degrees. These dual degrees means I am an engineering student, but I can also learn music in my college. I can also learn Sanskrit. I can learn economics. So, colleges like Shulini University, the University of Shulini has actually done this much earlier, where in the last few years, students have been able to pick up a major subject and a minor subject. In BITS Pilani, you may have heard for many, many, many years, this has been the case that you come out with a dual degree. So this is a flexibility that has come as for the new policy. And also the graduation stage is going to be for 4 years. Instead of 3 years, it will be 4 years. And that means that you will not do a BA in 3 years, or even what is called a B.Ed will be replaced by a bachelor's in education. And that will be probably be 4 years. This will take time to implement, but these are some of the keys. Also, to simplify matters, the policy says that boards and organizations such as AICTE, UGC will be merged. And if they are merged, then there will be only a few bodies in India which are responsible for the education system instead of a multiplicity of organizations. Also, we will have better focus on the motivation, morale, and training of the teachers. So teachers training is very much emphasized, and it is very important that teachers of the best, highest quality are teaching our students of tomorrow, citizens of tomorrow. It should not be that some of the teachers are very good and some of them may have come into teaching for force because they did not get a job in the government. So you become a school teacher in a private school. That should not be the case. It should be that you tried your best and wanted to be a teacher. Of course, there can be some people whose plan B was teaching and plan C was teaching, but it should not be plan Z. And I could not qualify for my first 25 preferences, therefore I came to the 26th one. That kind of teacher I would not like to study with. It will be very difficult for such a teacher to be motivated and inspired. Also, there is going to be a focus on the mother tongue as per the new policy. So the mother tongue will be encouraged, and primary school students will be probably learning a lot in the mother tongue instead of learning through English. Of course, there will be English schools which will continue to do what they are doing, but I think the Hindi language and regional language schools will be encouraged to improve their quality, and a large number of students will probably learn subjects like history, etc., in the Hindi language or the mother tongue language. I think these are things which are very, very important to understand. So the intention of the new policy, I think, is not to create any havoc, create any disturbance, or create any parishanis for everybody. The intention is to improve the system. And as an implementer or as a policy planner, I have been often in the government discussing these things. Implementation is the key. We can announce policy after policy, but just like we are looking at the pandemic, we find the policy of the government is that everybody should wear masks, everybody should keep a distance, everybody should be disciplined. But as human beings are human beings, we are not disciplined. We often take liberties, and it is causing risk and increasing the infection rate. Policies are announced, implementation is another matter. And therefore, at school levels, we have to see that all the policy is implemented in toto, in the spirit with which it is being announced. I think some very high level educationists have gone into the policy. and they've come up with a policy which seems to be implementable. Nothing is going to be problematic in that sense. Any student who is studying now in school or college should not be affected adversely by that. So it should be something that improves his or her career prospects. So these are my initial thoughts, and I'm going to pass on the mantle to Atul Khosla, and then I'll come back a little later with some more ideas. Atul has a very well formulated PPT on the new education policy, and I hope, Atul, you will show us a video of Shulini also, because it's been a long time since I saw it as well. Over to you.
Thank you, Vivek. I'll do that towards the end. I think many times when I speak, I try to tease my audience and make them jealous because I'm sitting in the middle of mountains. While there is COVID everywhere, we have a beautiful campus and we are surrounded by pine forests, and I live on campus. But that's for later. I think let's focus on more philosophical topics, some more important topics like the new education policy today. So Vivek, when I was a young boy, I always thought I would want to win the Nobel Prize. I was excited about science. I would read books about science, and I would have read, I think, hundreds and hundreds of books. Einstein was my role model to the extent that I had read and knew the theory of relativity even in my standard 8th. I knew bits of calculus by the time I was in the 9th grade. It was curiosity. Then something happened. Something happened when I moved into my 11th grade. The first thing that happened was, I still remember my father calling me and saying, Atul, doctor banoge ya engineer banoge? किसी ने मुझे बताया था कि मेडिकल में बहुत मेहनत करनी पड़ती है, so I said engineer बन जाऊंगा. And I think that's where my curiosity started dipping. I was pushed to study hard. I was told you have to study hard. My dad told me, पढ़ाई कर लोगे तो एक बारी IIT में निकल गए तो जिंदगी बन जाएगी. I remember his words. And for the next 2 years, I went into the rut of solving those stupid problems of IIT. I'm not, well, stupid, not really stupid, interesting problems. And I lost that urge to win the Nobel Prize. To the extent that when I got into IIT Kanpur, I had forgotten the basics of calculus and physics, and I really, really struggled in my next 4 years at IIT. And that's what education does to children. It takes the gleam of curiosity and excitement away from their eyes. And I think that's what the new education policy is attempting to do. It's trying to bring it back. It's trying to bring in students who are innovative, who can think off the feet, who are not just followers, but are leaders. So what are the big things that the new education policy is talking about? I think the first thing is universalization of education. 6% of our GDP will go into education. That means 20% of government expenditure will now be in education. What does it mean for you, for your children? It means that there'll be many, many more schools, which means you'll have many, many more jobs, which means hopefully your pays and structures and opportunities will go up. Very big change. I think the children will not have to run after, hopefully, once these schools come up, run after principals or trustees to get admissions into great schools, because there'll be many, many more great schools than what exists today. I think that's a very big fundamental change. The policy also says that the education will change, and I think these are big, big moves for you as a school. You'll have to think about it. As a teacher, you'll have to think about it. The first is the education will move from 10 plus 2 to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. The first 5 years are foundation years. No more bastas, no more books, no more bags. Learning by discovery, as they say. The next 4 years are the middle stage. The preparatory stage are the next 3 years. 6, 7, 8 grade is going to be middle. Introduction to formal subjects. That's when books will come into play. And the last stage is going to be secondary stage, which is grade 9, 10, 11, 12. It's going to be multidisciplinary, focus on critical thinking, not ratta, Flexibility of curriculum. Students don't have to choose between arts and science anymore. I think that's a big, big, big change, Vivek. Like I was pushed to say, decide between maths and medicine. Vivek, I had a cousin. I have a cousin who decided to be a doctor after doing a BA in psychology. Can that happen in India? No. And that's what the new education policy is talking about. So many, many more schools, more opportunities, but making students to think rather than making them just remember. Schools will have to give learning up to grade 5 in 3 different possible languages: home language, mother tongue, or regional language. I think that's a big fundamental change. Imagine not teaching in English anymore, or the dominance of English coming down. So big fundamental changes happening on the school stage. In the college stage, there'll be 4-year degrees. So if you do a 4-year degree, or if you already have a 4-year degree, your PG will now be 1 year. So all of you, because you've got a 3-year BA, BCom, BSc, and then a B.Ed degree, all of you can actually now think about doing your PG in 1 year if you don't have one already. You'll be encouraged to go out and do PhDs. Research is going to become very important both for school teachers and college teachers. The B.Ed degree is going away, and there'll be a 4-year BA education degree, which is going to come into play. Of course, people who've already done B.Ed, it will still be relevant. There will be clusters of schools that will support other schools. So being a leader, I think your school will become the lead school in your cluster. And finally, students will have the ability to have flexibility in the curriculum, flexibility of joining and leaving. So imagine a student who has to leave because of some challenge after 1 year of college. He or she will get a certificate. After 2 years, a diploma. After 3 years, a standard degree. And after 4 years, a degree by research. And whatever you've done in college will be kept in a national credit bank. So there's a national credit bank that's done. So I could have studied first 1 year at Shulani, for example, and kept those credits or grades in a bank. Think about it. Then the next 1 year, after working for 2 years, I could go to Punjab University, Chandigarh, and study over there. And then for the final 2 years, I can go to Oxford. And that's the type of flexibility the new education policy is talking about. Again, lots of investment in higher education. So the government envisages 50% gross enrollment ratio from existing 27%. Gross enrollment ratio means how many of students who passed 12th get into college. Today it's 26%, and we aspire to make it 50%. Investments have to come in. $1 trillion of investments have to come in into primary and secondary education and college education. $1 trillion. I can't even count the zeros behind it. Just to give you a sense how large that is. That is the total size of the Indian economy is used to be, because we've had a GDP decrease, used to be $2 trillion. So we're talking about half of India's GDP of 1 year being put into education in the next 15 years. That's huge. There'll be a new technology forum that'll come into play, and US schools can get technology from the government, from this technology forum. So lots of amazing things. Hopefully they'll be implemented, of course, in stages. And I think the most important thing that I would love to see over here is, there's a huge controversy around JEE and NEET. So NEET and JEE are going to be passé. There's going to be one common test, like the SAT of the United States. So they're talking about that. No more 10th exams, 12th exams. They're going to be more informal, twice a year. So you could take a 12th exam in the twice a year and improve on it also. So structured exams that we have in terms of boards are going to go away. Will boards remain? I don't know, Vivek, you can answer that question, but I think the role will change and schools will become more important, or there'll be clusters of schools who will manage other schools. So I think that's the big thing. Philosophically, like I said, it's about creating leaders. It's about making students who really think and use their brain and are not remembering things. We want to create a Silicon Valley in India. We don't want to create another Bangalore. We want to be rich. We want to create a knowledge economy. We want to have students who ask questions. We don't have, we don't want students who, when told an answer, say, "ठीक है, मैम ने बोला तो ठीक ही होगा." I remember, Vivek, when my son went to school, two very interesting things happened. He was not a great student, so I went to a PTM, and the teacher told me, "Sorry, teachers, you might not like what I said or what I say." They said his handwriting is very bad. I said, "Okay, I understand he should have good handwriting, but did you check his speed on his typing speed? You know, who uses writing anymore, handwriting? Okay, he can improve on that, and he should." The second thing the teacher said was, he doesn't write what we tell him, he writes on his own. And I actually went back and I patted my son and said, "Wow, I read some of your essays. They were beautiful. Continue doing that. Why should you remember what your teacher told you? You know, you should use it as a philosophy, as a guidepost." And I think the new education policy is now saying that's what we want from our students. So hopefully, you as teachers will step up. Hopefully, you as teachers will provide this knowledge, this education to our students that they really, really need. Hopefully, students will not be burdened by heavy, heavy bastas anymore. Hopefully, we'll create a nation that's asking questions, not just doing things. We want a nation of leaders. And hopefully, all you teachers and us teachers, Vivek, we are much more regarded. We have more money with us. And hopefully, we'll have more and more opportunities going forward. So I'm very excited. I hope implementation happens. And I'm going to ask you, Vivek, now to come in and talk a bit about implementation, because you are the guru of implementation. I mean, you've done this all your life as an IAS. So how do you see this being implemented, or are we just talking about utopian things? Over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Atul. Very good speech indeed. Very inspiring. And I think what examples you gave of your own life, I think they're very relevant. All of us went through this uncertainty phase and engineering versus doctor medicine phase. I became an engineer. I wanted to be a cricketer, but I couldn't play cricket after the age of 17 because I went to engineering college where I couldn't play serious cricket. And that was a time when you had to do what everybody told you to do. But now things are changing. So implementation also, I think, is changing to some extent. Technology is helping the transparency to increase. Otherwise, we never knew what is being implemented in far-flung areas of India. For example, today, an administrator sitting in the state capital can have a video conference with teachers anywhere in the state, or with officers, or with anybody. So I think implementation will be better than before. I think transparency has increased a great deal to that extent, with video cameras being there. Supposing some changes are to be made in a school in Amritsar or in Bhiwani or in Rodu, which are far flung from Chandigarh or Shimla, they can easily be monitored by technology today. Having said that, I think the changes that we spoke about, these are implementable. All these changes are implementable. Merger of two bodies like AICT and UGC may take time. It is difficult, but examination patterns are definitely implementable. The school education system, where the number of years are going to be changed to 5 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3, these are also going to be different. And it is going to be possible to implement them maybe in a couple of years from now. Also, I think the fact of having a 4-year degree instead of a 3-year degree is also possible to implement. And the flexible degree model also is possible to implement. That may be a little difficult in engineering colleges or colleges which are single sector colleges. For example, a science college somewhere in India which doesn't have teachers in arts and the fine arts and the liberal arts will have to introduce that part. A kind of institution which is very unique and only into chemical engineering or something like biotechnology, for that institution to get in the dual degrees will be difficult. However, as Atul also mentioned, it is possible to change your campus also. 2 years you did here, 2 years you did there. It will be possible to monitor with technology coming in and your education bank having your credits. So it will be possible. In future, technology will be able to help us. However, we have to see that the implementation is in sync with the ground realities. That means the principals of the schools have to be clearly understanding the policies. They have to know what to do in their own schools. For example, in your school, Neera ma'am, you will have to obviously implement only the micro level changes. The macro level, higher level changes have to be done by the government. And you will have to only do the part that is your school. For example, if they say that it is compulsory that you have a Sanskrit teacher and a German teacher, for example, it is not difficult for you to advertise and carry out some interview. Maybe German will be taught online so that teacher could be in Chandigarh. So blended learning will also help you to introduce new ideas into your school. And with technology enabled teaching, you will be able to offer new programs to the students which were not possible. Of course, I and Atul and you, I'm sure, are a great votary of going back to campus. We cannot continue like this, and teachers have been doing a lot to change their methodologies and their ways of teaching online. It has been very stressful, I know, for the teachers, but they will go back to classroom one day, and the emphasis should be on classroom learning. But we should definitely encourage whatever necessary distance learning and e-learning and online learning is necessary with the best teachers. Maybe a professor of Shulini University, it could be me or Atul or somebody else, is holding a class for your class 12, your students. One day of the year, you have a class by me, one day Atul, one day somebody else, a tie-up like that, which will enable them to learn fresh perspectives. So things like that could also be possible. I think implementation will happen. It will happen to in phases. So my idea is that it could probably start happening in the next 1 year, start happening a little more in the next 2 years, and within 3 years we will have seen most of these changes implemented. So nothing is going to happen in a breakneck speed in August, September, October. Now we are in September. It is not going to happen at breakneck speed. So nothing to worry. I don't think there is anything, nobody's losing jobs as a result of the policy, as far as I see. A few things are not implementable easily, and those are probably related to that language part which we discussed. Could be training of teachers, also maybe involving a lot of logistics, a lot of planning, a lot of expenses also at times. So it is necessary that teachers training be done properly. One thing that I must encourage you to do, ma'am, is to keep your teachers inspired, keep them motivated. I'm sure you do it. And Atul and I would love to interact with you again sometime and how to inspire your teachers. Because informing them about the new education policy is one thing, but to keep them motivated and inspired, keep them cheerful, keep them willing to learn. So the idea of continuous learning for teachers is also very important. They cannot sit on their laurels. I learned history in school and now I'm teaching history for the next 35 years. That cannot be. Maybe in history, there has been new research. Maybe Akbar had some minister we didn't know about, or something else happened, or some nuances, which have to come out. So some books to read. I would also lastly encourage your teachers to read books, especially in the lockdown. I know they are busy with online classes, but whatever time you have, read a lot of autobiographies, read books. My favorite book is here. It is the autobiography of a yogi, and it is a spiritual book. I follow the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, and I would also urge the teachers to meditate. And meditation will give them a lot of balance in life, calmness, and then your whatever 10 hours or 12 hours that you are running around here and there or online or whatever it is, including home and school, you will be better off and energized mentally, spiritually, physically. Also take out time for physical fitness. There's no excuse for being lazy. So physical fitness will give you better health, better years ahead. And as the saying goes, instead of increasing the years in your life, try to increase the life in your years. So that is something that you must follow. I think it's over to Atul now, and maybe at the end I can tell a story or two. And right now Atul will add some more ideas.
Yeah, you basically wanted to see Shulani, Vivek. So why don't I pick up a small video on that,
Yes,
if you allow me?
let's
And
do that.
uh, like I said, I love teasing my audiences every now and then. Give me 1 second, everyone. I just have to close this file and open a new folder. Okay, fantastic. Lovely. Okay, Vivek, if you allow me, can I share my screen?
Yes, yes, please.
So, teachers, this is Shulani. Like I said, it's beautiful. It's in the middle of a pine forest, and hopefully, you will find it as inspiring as I do every day of my life. Here it is. So this was Shulani, Vivek. I hope you are remembered of all the good days you've had coming.
Oh yes, looking forward.
So we should get Neera ma'am into the discussion. I think it's so lovely to have her here. And I don't know whether any of your other colleagues are there. If I think Anju Thakur is also there. If you could also come, Anju ma'am, we'd love to see you too. So Neera ma'am, your thoughts about the new education policy? Would love to hear that.
Definitely, sir. Before interacting with you people, it was really something very horrible and something off the track coming to the school level. But definitely, after discussing and getting thoughts from you people, I came to know that no, it's not like that. We are, my teachers are really worried about the implementation, whether it's through single step or step by step, but it's comfortable, definitely going to improve we people, definitely. But we have to change, am I audible to you people?
You are,
Yes.
ma'am, Neera ma'am. Please.
Okay, okay. But definitely, we should be get inspired, motivated by people like you only. Then only we will definitely be on the track to help Mr. Vivek, since he's on the track for this education policies, and Mr. Atul Atray, since you are carrying out, sorry, Mr. Khosla, you are carrying out for this Shulni University on a large scale. Uh, I'm really happy. I'm really happy. I'm part of this meeting today only, so webinar only, to get encouraged and definitely open up with the perspective of this NEP. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Neera ma'am. I think what wonderful words, and there's so much sparkle in your eye, and I'm sure under your leadership, you'll go out and implement the NAP in the best possible way.
But
So, Vivek, we'd love our audience to ask some questions. So,
but
audience,
I want to
members,
add,
yeah,
sir,
please go ahead.
Mr. I am going to disturb you people again and again for this purpose to motivate and to give enlighten our path on this track and to get good to carry on a good school for new citizens of our India. So I hope I can disturb you people.
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Neera ma'am, for a very kind words. I also have some of my colleagues in here today. So Karishma is here. So she said, good. She was really congratulating you, Vivek. She said that it was very interesting and enlightening. So hopefully we did a good job. But we can't close without hearing your stories, Vivek. So, you want to pick a couple of them up before we close for the day?
Sure, these are meant to inspire. I must tell the Einstein story today because Atul mentioned that he learned the theory of relativity in class 8, and I'm very impressed by that. And the other one is about Pedrevsky, so I must tell the two stories. So, ma'am and teachers, this is about the qualities that we should possess probably. There was a series of lectures by Albert Einstein in the US, and he was going around speaking on the theory of relativity, as we mentioned. He was very well received. He used to go from one university to another, and his theory of relativity lecture was very popular. Now he went to 24 towns, and the driver was the same. He would take him from one town to another town, and they would stay the night and go to the next town. And after 24 towns, they were going to the 25th town, and they were on the road. And Einstein was reading some papers when the driver finally spoke. Till today, he didn't speak to Einstein at all. Suddenly, the driver says, Mr. Einstein, I've been listening to all your lectures sitting at the back of the hall. I think even I can deliver this lecture now. So Einstein is quite startled and shocked, and he stops doing whatever he's doing. He's quite, excited because he's a great scientist, innovative, creative. He said, wonderful. He says, you become Einstein, I'll become the driver. They don't know how I looked in the next town because it's a small town. I'm sure they don't know. We'll go there and you deliver the lecture. So they go there, and the dean of the university receives the driver with a bouquet of flowers. Einstein goes and sits at the back of the hall, and the driver Saab goes and delivers the lecture of his life, a beautiful lecture on the theory of relativity for 1.5 hours. Everybody claps and cheers, and Einstein is so happy, he claps and cheers from the back. And then a professor in the front row gets up and asks a question. He says, Mr. Einstein, I have a question for you, and it's a very complicated question. The driver looks at him and he says, that's a very simple question, Professor. I think even my driver sitting at the back can answer it. So, this is something which is my favorite story. I think it's Atul's, one of his favorites as well. So I think we learn from the driver. Firstly, we learn confidence, that he could say to Einstein that I will deliver the lecture. Secondly, we learn that he was intelligent. He could grasp the lecture, memorize it, however he took notes or whatever he did for 24 times. Thirdly, we learned that he was a driver, but he could deliver, he could go on stage. So every one of us in this era has to be a good speaker, has to improve as a speaker, has to keep on honing that skill. And lastly, we learn the level of calmness that he had. Calmness to the extent that when a professor asked a difficult question, he had the presence of mind to turn the tables and ask the driver or Einstein to answer. The next story is about a little child and how we lose our childhood excitement at times, and we should retain it. So this is about Pedrevsky. Pedrevsky was a Polish piano player, very famous Poland player of piano, and he used to play very well. There were concerts. There were 500 people in the hall when Pedrevsky was to play one day. and there was a lady who had smuggled in a 6-year-old child, whereas small children were not allowed. But she could not leave the child at home. She had the child with her, and they were sitting. And then this lady spots a friend sitting 2 rows in front before the curtains are opened. So she gets up and goes and talks to that lady and tells the child before, don't get up from here. But you know how mothers are and you know how children are. So the moment she goes, the child runs to some other place, and he goes behind the stage, and he finds a red light which says no entry. He doesn't know what it means. He goes to the stage. He goes and sits on the piano and starts doing ting, ting, ting with the piano. Now the curtain opens. Pedrevsky comes to the stage. The mother comes back to the seat at the same time. The crowd is very surprised to see a child at the piano. So they think that Pedrevsky will shoo away the child and ask the ushers to take the child away. The mother is shocked by the child's absence from the chair, and she is even more shocked to see that he's on the piano on the stage. So just think how the mother feels. But Pedrevsky does not shoo away the child. He asks for another stool. He makes the child sit with him for over an hour and keep on tinkering with the piano. The child keeps on tinkering and Pedrevsky improvises. Whatever the child is playing, Pedrevsky plays along with him. And that particular concert becomes the best concert that Pedrevsky has ever delivered because of his great innovation. And he becomes even more famous. The child becomes famous. The mother becomes famous. Everybody becomes, she becomes a celebrity instead of being fined for having smuggled a child inside. So we learn from all this that when we are small children, we don't have fear. We do creative things. Sometimes we do naughty things, wrong things, but we can also do things which are absolutely innovative and creative. And Pedrevsky, we learn from him how a human being should be more understanding and more ready to accept whatever situation has come. And over to you then, Atul. This is the story that also inspires.
Thank you, Vivek. I think stories like these is what inspire people. You're always such an inspiring speaker, inspiring teacher.
Thank you.
And Neera ma'am, your teachers are exceptional. It's a beautiful school that you have. Thank you very, very much. You know, we just enjoy talking to teachers and students, and this has been an amazing, amazing discussion once again. So before I close for the day, I'm going to request first Neera ma'am to give her last thoughts. One sentence is the only thing allowed, and then you, Vivek, and I'll close for the day. Over you, Neera ma'am, just one sentence.
On the behalf of Maharana Pratap School members and family, I just thank you, both of you, a lot for helping and guiding we people. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Neera ma'am. Vivek.
Thank you very much, Atul. It's a pleasure always to be a part of Ideas That Matter. Thank you, Neera ma'am. It's been wonderful to interact with you. Look forward to interacting again.
So Vivek, when I was a young child, in my Hindi book, there was a poem on Chetak. And I became a big fan of Maharana Pratap at that point of time. And I think some part of my life is shaped by Maharana Pratap. So it's an honor to speak to a school named after someone that I see as a mentor. So thank you once again and have a great day and be safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.